Did you know that 80% of fantasy worlds fail to feel truly alive because their creators ignore one crucial thing? It's not the magic or dragons that matter most, it's how the world functions. When you build a world that feels real, people won't just read about it, they'll live in it. And yet, world building often gets skipped over or treated like an afterthought. Here's a shocking fact. Over 90% of the best-selling fantasy books have intricate worlds with cultures, conflicts, and ecosystems that are meticulously crafted. If you want to take your storytelling to the next level, world building isn't just a step, it's a secret weapon. In this video, we're diving into 6 hidden world-building secrets that will make your fantasy worlds unforgettable. From cultures that breathe life into your characters to magic that feels grounded and real, we'll give you the tools to create worlds that readers can't put down. Think your world is great? Wait until you try these strategies. Let's see how deep the rabbit hole really goes. Stay tuned. Chapter 1: The secret source of immersive realms. Crafting authentic culture. Building a world that feels alive starts with creating real, authentic cultures. It's not just about naming a few countries or villages. It's about designing how people live, what they believe, and what they value. Think about Tolkien's Middle-earth. Its cultures weren't just different in language, but also in how they viewed the world. The elves and dwarves had distinct views on time, craftsmanship, and nature, which shaped everything they did. When you build a culture, it's essential to think beyond customs. What kind of music do they listen to? What are their laws, and how are they enforced? According to cultural anthropologist Clifford Geertz, culture is like a web of significance, and as a world builder, it's your job to untangle it. And don't forget food. What people eat can tell you a lot about their environment, history, and values. Food isn't just sustenance, it's a cultural touchstone that binds communities together. Even the way people dress can tell a lot about their social status, their environment, and their priorities. For example, the nomadic tribes in deserts might wear light, flowing garments to protect themselves from the sun, while those in colder climates might wear furs. Imagine how this would impact their daily lives. How do they travel? How do they communicate? Design your world's cultures so that every little detail adds depth. Don't be afraid to draw inspiration from real-world cultures, but always give it your unique twist. Consider how religion might shape a culture's daily rituals or how a history of war might influence their view on peace and diplomacy. In the end, the goal is for people in your world to feel like they are truly from that place, no matter how fantastical it might be. Chapter 2: Ecosystem Overhaul. Designing living, breathing worlds. A world doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not just a place where things happen, it's a living, breathing ecosystem. Think about the interconnectedness of all the elements, animals, plants, climate, and even magic. Take the world of Avatar, The Last Airbender, as an example. The Fire Nation, Earth Kingdom, Water Tribes, and Air Nomads all had ecosystems that were designed to fit the cultures and lives of their people. Each nation had a specific climate and geography that affected their way of life. When designing your ecosystem, consider how everything interacts. The terrain and weather conditions directly impact the resources available to your people. Is your world arid, tropical, or frozen? Does it have forests, deserts, or mountain ranges? Each of these environments has different consequences for agriculture, architecture, and economy. For example, a forest-dwelling people might rely on wood for building materials, while a desert culture might trade in precious metals or rare minerals. Weather, too, plays a huge role. Harsh climates like tundras and deserts force people to adapt in unique ways. Similarly, the animals in your world must be tailored to these environments. Are there flying beasts that can cross the wide stretches of desert? Or maybe underwater creatures that navigate the deep oceans? The more thought you put into these ecosystems, the more real and immersive your world becomes. Chapter 3: The Power of Conflict. Crafting tension through history. Conflict is at the heart of every good story. In world building, it's important to look at how historical events shape the present. Every world has its wars, revolutions, and rivalries. These events form the foundation of its political, social, and economic systems. Think about George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. The history of the Seven Kingdoms is filled with brutal battles, betrayals, and revolutions that influence every character's decision. Historical conflicts can shape a world's culture and worldview, just as much as the people who live in it. These events often create lasting divides, like the North-South divide in Westeros or the constant struggle between light and shadow in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. When crafting your own world, think about the events that define its history. Were there empires that rose and fell? How did these wars shape the development of technology, art, or philosophy? This history is essential to the conflicts in your present-day world. It's not just about what's happening now, but what's been happening for centuries. It's also crucial to understand the impact of conflict on the land itself. Wars may leave lasting scars in the environment, like ruined cities, poisoned land, or broken landscapes. History doesn't have to be only about epic battles. It could also include smaller, personal struggles. These quieter moments can be just as impactful on your world. If you're finding this helpful, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss more tips on how to build incredible worlds. Chapter 4: Magic that makes sense. Grounding the fantastic. Magic is one of the most exciting aspects of fantasy, but it also needs rules and limitations to feel grounded. In Harry Potter, magic is a powerful tool, but it's also governed by strict laws. Wizards can't just do anything. They have to study, follow spells, and use their magic responsibly. This is a great example of how a magical system should function. It's not about making characters overpowered, it's about introducing boundaries that keep the magic interesting. When building your magic system, ask yourself some key questions. How does magic work? Who has access to it? Are there consequences for using it? Does it require resources, or is it based on mental or physical power? These questions can help you create a system that feels realistic, even in a fantasy world. Remember, magic should have a purpose in your world. It might be a tool of power, but it should also influence how people live and think. In many fantasy worlds, magic is tightly controlled by certain groups, whether it's a governing body or a secretive guild. This control over magic can create tension and drive much of the plot. Additionally, magic can affect the world's economy and technology. Does magic make certain technologies obsolete? Or does it create new possibilities for growth and advancement? The key to magic is consistency. If magic works in one situation, it should work the same way in another, unless there's a logical reason for it to change. Chapter 5: People of the World. Creating characters that belong. Characters don't exist in a vacuum. They are shaped by the world around them. When building characters, think about how their environment influences their personality, actions, and beliefs. This is especially important in fantasy worlds, where a character's upbringing might be drastically different from anything you know. Take Arya Stark from Game of Thrones. Her upbringing in the Cold North, combined with her noble family values, shaped who she became. Similarly, your characters must feel like they belong to the world you've created. Think about their culture, their environment, and their historical context. For example, a character raised in a society that values honor might struggle with moral dilemmas, while one from a brutal, militaristic culture might prioritize strength over compassion. The more you tie your characters to their environment, the more realistic and relatable they'll feel. Also, remember that people don't all act the same way, even in the same society. There should be differences in how individuals respond to the same situation. That's what makes a world rich and diverse. Personal stories should intersect with the larger narrative of the world, creating a sense of belonging and purpose for each character. Chapter 6: The Mythos and Legends. Weaving the fabric of fantasy. Myths and legends are a huge part of world building. They give depth and history to your world, even if they're never directly explored in your story. In J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion, the ancient myths of Middle-earth shape everything from the creation of the world to the rise of the elves. These legends influence how people view themselves and the world around them. When you create your myths, think about the foundational stories of your world. How was the world created? Are there gods or divine beings who shaped it? Do these myths explain the origins of important concepts, like magic or morality? Mythology often serves as the lens through which people interpret the world. It affects how they view life, death, and the afterlife. For example, in ancient Greece, gods were very much involved in the human experience, guiding or punishing mortals. Similarly, your world's religions and legends can impact the political structure, social norms, and individual behavior. You don't have to go into deep detail about every myth, but the knowledge that these stories exist gives your world a sense of history. These stories should also resonate with the larger themes of your world, creating a cohesive, interconnected narrative that feels alive and rich. Remember to subscribe if you're enjoying the journey into world building. Stay tuned for more in-depth tips and secrets to help you craft your ultimate fantasy world.